Okay, we're gonna start Unit 9 today. Um, this little perspective. So we're gonna do Unit 9. This is on getting Firebase to work with Flutter. So we'll work on that this week. There'll be a learning activity on Thursday, and we'll do some activities today, getting set, try to get this all, learn the basics today. Um, I have the learning activity post here, but I haven't updated it yet for 2025. This is an old stuff, so don't start on the project. I'll try to get that updated hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll do it in class on Thursday here. There will be an assignment. I currently have it hidden from you, but it will be an optional assignment this week. So you can decide if you want, and we'll look at, in the assignment, we'll look at doing authentication with Firestore here in Flutter as the optional assignment. Now you might ask, well, that's really nice if I'm making an optional assignment. What am I going to do this weekend if I don't do the assignment there? And so I will, by Thursday, have opened up Project 2 because this is our last unit last week on Firebase. Well, and then next week, all week, we'll be working on Project 2 in class. So next week will be Project 2, our Flutter project. I'm still updating this stuff, but I'll have it open and released on Thursday so you can start looking at it. And the idea is that this weekend, rather than working on the assignment, you should probably start working on the project too. I'll have the first sprint due sometime next week here for that. We'll just do, it'll be very similar to the first project. You'll just do the first sprint will be coming up with the idea and setting up the basic UI. The second sprint will be getting some of the back end stuff like a database connected. And then the following Tuesday, you'll just share your project in class or via video for online students. So that's kind of where we're looking at. So today we're trying to figure out how to get Flutter and Firebase to work together. I'd like to tell you that there's a really nice, simple tool that does this all for us and very easy to use, and that is Google's idea. There's some tool called Flutterfire that is set up for setting this up very easily. It is not very easy to use or set up, unfortunately. And so we'll try to work through the day to get your computer set up so you can use this tool in some ways for this. So let's look at that. So I'm going to open up this. I'm just going to go to Unit 9 and open up this setting up Firebase in Flutter file. First thing we want to do is see how our current Flutter is configured and make sure we have some things set up correctly here. Things we may have skipped earlier on when we were installing Flutter. So things like making sure Flutter's bin folders in your path and make sure we have Git installed and available here. So let's look at that. So I'm going to run Android Studio and open up. I'm just going to open up a project. It doesn't matter what a Flutter project here for this. I just want to get some sort of project open so I can get access to a terminal window here. Now, down at the bottom left of the screen, there's like Logcat we've looked at. There's also the problem. Sometimes you look, and then the terminal. We want to go down to the terminal window and look at this. So this should be just a local terminal. We can type in commands here. And so we're going to try out some commands. So the first command we're going to try out is to check if the Flutter command line is available. And the easiest way to do that is type Flutter space doctor to check your Flutter installation. So I'm just going to go down here and type Flutter space doctor. Now, if Flutter is in your path, you'll get this nice output that says, you know, Flutter's channel, Flutter version or Windows version, Android toolchain here is here. There might be some things that are missing here, but like Chrome is Visual Studio. I'm not using Visual Studio. I mean, it's installed, but I'm not using it, so I don't care about Visual Studio. Android Studio is checked, and VS Code is running, and that sort of stuff. But more than likely than not, you might not get anything. This Flutter command might not be recognized. So if it's not recognized, what do we have to do? We have to put Flutter in your path for this. So we have to find the Flutter SDK for this. Now, maybe you remembered where the Flutter SDK is. If not, if you start a new Flutter project, the first thing that'll be shown is the SDK path. So I like to just take that and grab that. So I just do a new Flutter project and grab that SDK path. I'm just going to cancel that now. And I'm just going to post that, put that in my notepad for now. Okay, so I've got the path here. I'm going to add it to my environmental variables. Okay, so you can add it to your environmental variables. There's some instructions here on how to add Flutter to your path here. To do this, I'm just, and you can follow those instructions. I'll just show you how I'm used to doing this. I'm used to just typing in like environment down here, and there's a setting for edit environmental variables. I click on that. This will pop up here. Your system properties, environmental variables are one of the buttons. That'll pop up this window. So list your different environmental variables, and one of them is path. I'm going to click on path and hit edit. And I'm going to look at my path here and see what's in there. And I'm going to watch here two things. One is if Flutter/bin is in here. I'm also going to watch, see if git is in here also. Git command there. So if these aren't in here, I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to go get that. So again, I grabbed my Flutter SDK path here. And if I can actually look at that in my File Explorer. And inside, on mine, it's, you know, docs, well, tgivens, docs, Flutter. One's uppercase, one's lowercase, just the way it was installed, it looks like, strange. But there's also a bin folder in here. And so I want to make sure I'm into the bin folder. And that's the folder where my apps are. So I want to make sure that. So again, I'm back to my environmental variables. I'm going to do a new environmental variable, paste this in here, and make sure it's Flutter/bin. The bin folder is in your path. Now, while this is up, I'm going to do the next part at the same time. Check if git is installed. And because we have to add it to the path there. So I'm going to go back into my command here and type in git and see if it should tell you the options for running git here. But if it says git is not recognized, git is probably not installed on. And it looked like in these lab machines, git was not installed or not in the path. So to download and install git, we're going to follow these instructions. Install git, install the latest version of git for Windows. I'm just going to do these are just 64-bit stuff. So I'm just going to get the git 64-bit set up, download that. I've actually already downloaded it on this machine earlier this morning when I was testing things out. So I'm not going to download it again. I'm just going to go to my downloads folder. Okay, and here it is. I'm going to install that. For this. Now, I think if you're in the labs, you're going to need my code to install things. So I've changed my password for class so you can log into these machines here. So if you're in on these local machines, you can use T Gibbons at css.edu. And my password for that hour is 4CIS at capital CSS. These are lowercase. This is an at sign for not uppercase. So if you're installing it on the labs and you need administrative permission, you can use that. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So that's why we're doing it. So the question is, once you updated the path, how do you get it to work? You have to close Android Studio and run it again. Okay, so now I've installed Git here. I'm going to add that to my path also. And again, it probably is installed here. C program files, Git command. In fact, I can go out there and look. I can go to C program files, Git, and then there's this command folder. So that's the folder I want. I want to make sure I've got that folder, and I'm going to add that to my path also. So again, going back to my path here, I'm going to edit that and make sure that is inside. If not, do a new one and paste that in there. So once you get both of those, Flutter and Git in your command line, you can okay out of all of these. And then we're going to quit Android Studio and run Android Studio again. And then when we run Android Studio again, now Git should be recognized. If I hit Git, it'll just tell me, the basic concepts of Git. It won't say Git unrecognized. And again, I can run Flutter space doctor here, and it will analyze my Flutter configuration, and Flutter will be in my path. Okay, so that's where I want to be. I'll take a break and see how we're doing with this stuff. We want Flutter and Git to be commands we can run from the command line in our studio or in Android Studio there. Okay, I'm going to, again, lay out a little bit of what we need to do next because some of you are still doing it. So this is just kind of some background information, again, with Firebase. So if you remember, there's a Firebase console here. I'm just going to Google Firebase console and open that up. We've already logged in to Firebase earlier, so we've got that set up. We already have apps created, but we can create new apps. But I'm just going to click on one of these apps here that we did earlier just to look at it. We enable certain technology. So on this one, we enabled authentication and Firestore database here, and I'm in the project overview. Now, with each Firebase project, you can tie it to different apps, different software code projects. So if you're doing an Android project, you need to set that up. And so I have this one tied to an Android project here. And if you remember correctly, there's a Google services.json file we had to download and put in our Android project to get that to work. So that's how it works with Android projects. Now, you can add, let's say you want to do a web project or an iOS project that tied into the same thing. You could add additional apps here, an iOS app or a web app or a Flutter app. You can add these different apps here and store them in different locations for this. But what's one of the challenges is that with Flutter, we actually have an Android, like mine, I have an Android app and a web app here. So I would need to store inside my Android app, I'd want to store what was it called? Or Firebase.json file there. It has to be in a certain location there. And then in my web project, again, I'd have to store something in iOS. I'd have to store it in a certain folder also. And that can be hard to know. You can do that all manually. So you can go through and set up each of these apps and download each file into your project folder. So I can put them in all the right places. But we're going to try to run a tool that'll make that easier for us to tie into a project like this. Okay, so let's see. You ready to move on to the next part using the Flutter Fire command line interface? So we're going to use this CLI here. So first you have to install the Firebase CLI to do command line stuff here. So again, I'm going to go here and you can download the standalone, but I don't find this very useful. It only runs it in its own little window and it doesn't help with some of the other commands. So I'm going to try to install it with the Node Package Manager. So I'm going to switch over to the Node Package Manager and run this command. And that's the command I have right here. npm Node Package Manager install Firebase tools. So I'm just going to go over to my terminal again in Android Studio, and I'm going to paste that in there and see if that works. And hopefully my Node Package Manager is installed so that I can actually run this. So it is going to be spinning around and thinking for a little bit on that, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to let that run. So again, I'm installing this Firebase tool here. There are instructions for how to do it for Mac and Linux also here with this same sort of command. So we're going to install this. And then we're going to make sure that it's running by running this Firebase project list to see if we can list out the Firebase projects. So in the same way, like I'm running, where's my Firebase console here, I can see my list of projects here. I should be able to also see those from my command line in Android Studio or whatever I'm at. So that's what I want to see. So let's see, how am I doing over here? Okay. It warned me there's a new version of Node Package Manager from 10.9 to 11.6. That's not bad. I would say if you're one of the machines I was trying this on, I was back in NPM like 8 on going to 11. So I updated that. But if you're up like here, where that should be fine here. So that looks good. So I've got that installed. Now I'm going to try to list out these Firebase projects. I'm just going to copy that command, go back to my terminal and paste that in. So I'm getting this error, Firebase not recognize command. Oh, I think I was supposed to run this command not in my Android Studio. I think I should have run it into a normal command window. Let me try that. Because it should update your path with these tools also. Okay, now I'm going to try to exit Firebase again and try this. Be very happy if we can get Firebase and Flutter working by the end of the day. We always struggle with this, and the problem. So I'll just tell you a little bit of the history of this. So originally they just was Firebase, and it was really hard to configure. And so they created this whole library called Flutter Fire to make this, and it was an official Google package, and they used that for a while. But it still wasn't great, but it was okay. And then just recently, again, they thought, oh, this is so. We want to make sure everyone knows this is official, so we roll that back into the Firebase installation and not separate. So a lot of the tools, current stuff says don't talk about it, but it's like it built underneath it. So it's always confusing how to get these tools. I've never thought Firebase and Flutter teams have worked. They've always been trying to work together very well, but I don't think they have. Okay, so now let's try this. No, I'm going to try this. I'm going to run this Firebase projects list command now. Let's see if that'll work. No. I'm not getting this Firebase running. I swear I was in the lab this morning and this worked fine, so I'm just confused. You have to restart Android Studio? Yeah, I closed Android Studio and restarted it. Yeah, so okay. I'm gonna try this. Let's see. Oh, that's from it. Yeah. So Windows. Um, I didn't see any errors when I was running this command. Oops. We may have to switch. There's a binary installer here we can download, but I was hoping to avoid that. So let's see again. Okay, well, since I'm not getting that to work, I'm not sure why that isn't working here. I'm going to go and I'm going to go back to this standalone package manager. So let's see where that is. So let me update this. I'll put that in instructions. Okay, I'm going to download this standalone install. So this will download this install package, but we won't be able to run this from within Android Studio. It has to run its own command line. That's why I wanted to do this npm. So is anyone else again, I swear I ran this npm install and it worked and it installed it for my different machines, but no, worked for you. What? Yeah, so why am I? Oh, I wonder if I have to run this as a admin. I am an admin though.
In there, like we have to like do like the set to the policy or something like that for it to work on.
Yeah. I'm just going to run this as an admin and then try running that. Because I was testing it in my upstairs computer and I'm admin on that. So let's just see. No, this is not recognizing it. Huh. Okay. Well, if you have that working, you can run this, you can run these commands here. I've downloaded this Firebase install tool, and I'm going to run that. Now it'll give me an error warning because it's not sure how secure it is. And I'll say more information. I'll say run anyway. And then it'll open up a special command prompt where it'll set up my environment here. So I can run the commands here in the same way. If you are getting this to work in Android Studio, it's easier for you to run these commands in Android Studio here. So I'm just waiting for it to set up here. So we're going to try to list out the projects here. So we're going to try to do Firebase projects, space projects, list to list out all the projects. I'm waiting for it to set up my environment here. And that should list out your projects. Now, my experience is often it won't work right away because the way you're logged in. And so you have to log out, log in again, and then do that. So I'll show you that here. So it says it's checking my Firebase credentials, and it says you're authenticated. You're ready to log in. Sure, I want to enable this and enable this. Okay. So I'm going to choose my account and log in, and it should be authenticated here. So now if I do that command, Firebase project list, should list out the projects here. So here's all my I have a bunch of Firebase projects. You probably just have one or two. Who knows? There. Now, if that doesn't work, I'll just say Firebase log out. The log out. I say Firebase log in. To log in again, it'll open up a web browser to confirm this here. So again, and it says like what account do I want to use? I click on that, I say allow, and it'll say, woohoo, you're confirmed, and then I should be successfully logged in. So you've got, just so that you can eventually type in this Firebase projects list here for this. Okay. So see if you're there. Then we're going to want to create a new Firebase project in Android Studio. And then we're going to run this Flutter Fire config in Android Studio. If not, I have to make sure that I'm running it in the right folder in this command line stuff. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to create a new project, new Flutter project. Flutter Firebase pool. I'm going to pay attention to for me, I'm going to pay attention to the project location. It's in my Android Studio projects, and it's got that name because I'm going to have to find that because other way I'm running it in this separate folder. I'm going to change this. I'm only going to need some of these versions of this. Now I'm going to create that project. Okay. Now to have that new project created, if you're getting these commands to work okay, you can run Flutter Fire config in this terminal window inside your project. So what's nice, if you do it in Android Studio, this command is already running inside the right folder. So I don't have to switch what folder it is. I can just run this here. But again, for some reason, mine isn't recognizing it. What? Ah, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to run it over here, but I have to be in the right folder. So if you remember, I'm going to go look at what folder. So in T. Gibbons, mine was Android Studio Projects, and it was this Flutter Firebase. So again, that's my main project folder here. I'm going to grab that. Over here, I'm just going to CD to that location. So, oops. Right. Yeah. So if I type in, I've CD'd space to that location and I type in dir, I can list all the folders here. So now that I'm in the right folder here, because again, I'm running this not in here, I'm running it here, I can then paste my command in here. So I'm going to do this Flutter Fire configure.
How to add an environment variable for this one.
Which one?
I was having the same issue.
Okay.
We look back. I just
Okay.
install the Flutter Fire CLI.
Let's go back from here. So, yeah. I'm going to go back to these instructions and see what I missed here. So yeah. So there's two different CLIs. There's a Firebase CLI you need, and there's also a Flutter Fire CLI. And I don't think I included both commands in here. So I think you also have to do this Dart Flutterfly CLI. I'm going to run that here.
We ran that in the terminal.
Yeah. Now, one thing to watch is it installs it in this local cache here. And so that might not be in your path here. So we may have to run that whole command here for this. So now let's see if I can run my, go up my Flutterfire config. Still says it's not recognized. So, but if I look in this location here, there is a Flutter Fire in that location that it says here. So I'm going to specify that. I could put that in my path, or I can put that in, I could give that full path here. So I can type in that whole path and then do, what is the command? Flutter fire. And then configuration. Configure. So that's what this shows you, is the longer, the fuller path for this command. So if this one doesn't work, you may have to do this, and you'll see that from this. So butterfly config. So that's where we want to be, where it recognizes the Flutterfire config command here and gets this set up. So if that works, then I'll ask, do you want to create a new Firebase project here? Now I'm surprised it didn't ask me yeah, so it wasn't able to run Firebase versions or the stuff. So usually it would list out all my Firebase projects at this point, and it didn't. So that's got me a little worried. I'm going to just say yes, do a new project and give it some name. We're going to do a voting sample project. I'm just going to give it some temporary name for now.
So you're creating a new Firebase project.
Yeah. Now, if it lists out your Firebase projects, which it should, you can just pick one of the current ones there. But I'm going to try to create a new one.
Even if they're like completely unrelated to this class.
Yeah. I don't know. It's depends on. You can reuse and put different projects in Firebase, but it might be better to create a new project, I think, for this. But again, I'm getting this error. Flutterfire command line requires official Firebase command line also installed, and it's having trouble getting that. It's not seeing that. So let's see where I'm at here. Because that's weird, because I'm in, oh wait, I know, I'm not in the right window, I think. Now again, I'm in this Firebase window, so I'm really confused because just a bit ago I could do this command. Yeah, so I can list out my Firebase projects. So I'm not sure why this Flutterfire config is not working. I'm going to try to do a Firebase log out again and log in again. And about here, you're thinking, Tom, wouldn't it have been easier just to figure out how to manually copy the files into the right folders? Because there's just a couple files you have to set in the right folders. And now I'm going, yeah, that's one of the problems with this, is that this is supposed to be the easy way to set up this Firebase project. And if it works out well, it is easy. But again, I have trouble getting it to work out. Yes, I'm not sure why I'm unable to get the Firebase project working here. Okay, I'm going to try over here. Okay, so I've done that. So I swear I got this to work all this morning in this lab. I'm not quite sure why it's not working now. I'm very confused. So, I'm gonna step out of this and I'm gonna go check my environmental variables. Okay, I've got Flutter is installed there. I'm gonna add this new one that we just installed to the list. Try closing this. Running this again. So now I added this Flutterfire path here, but again, I should be able to see the Firebase stuff and I'm not. So I'm just gonna break out of that and see why I'm not seeing Firebase. So it seems like the Firebase command line interface is not in my path. So let me see what went wrong there. That was this command I did earlier. Do you have NPM in your path somewhere? I don't. And I'm wondering if I should somewhere. Okay. I'm gonna pause this and we'll try to figure out, and I'll try to start the recording again when we figure things out a little bit more. I'm gonna keep going here on the next part, and then I think I'm gonna manually set this up and download the configuration files here and show you how to do that in case if you're having trouble getting this Flutterfire to work correctly here. So let's look at some Dart coding here. So this is a tutorial. Oh, I don't think I have the tutorial linked in here. Let me link that in. This comes from an old tutorial on how to use using Firestore, the backend for this. So let me look. Okay, I'll update that. So what this tutorial shows is a simple website where we're trying to figure out what to name our band, our new garage band that we're starting up, and there are different names, and we're just gonna ask all of our fans to vote on a name here. Everyone has the app. So we're gonna create some data here for this. So we're going to keep track of bands. So we're going to create this simple data model here for bands. So I'm going to go over here, and inside my project, I'm going to create a folder called models. And inside that, I'm going to create a file called band.dart. Oops, not band, comma dart. Let's see if I can rename that. Dart. Let's try that. Okay. And then I'm going to move this code into that file. So that just stores. So for every band, there'll be a name and then how many votes that band has here. And then I'm going to have a simple UI here. And I'm just going to copy this out, and this will replace my main.dart file here. And it'll let me show me some band names that leave vote on it, on different band names for this. Let me see if I can get this running. The initial version of this stores the band names in a list here inside our state which here. So it just stores it locally, not in Firebase. There's an add band. This pops up a little dialog to let us add a band. There's a vote, which adds votes to that band. And then there's a display here. So here's my widget here. So I can vote on a band here. I don't know why I did this, or it reorders with the top vote getters at the top. So just be when you're clicking on one, so you can click on these votes here. You can also add a band at the bottom here. So that's the interface. And then what we're going to do is try to store this not locally here, but in Firebase for this. So we're going to try to store this in Firebase for us. And that's what the second part of this works on. So again, for the second part of it, hopefully we've got the Firebase CLI installed, and we've activated our Flutterflyer command here, and then we can do our Flutterfly config, and we've already hopefully done this Flutterfly config inside our project here. So that's why I have this all crossed out here. What you do want to do is add some dependencies to your PubSpec YAML. So in your project here, there's a PubSpec YAML. And if we scroll down, there's dependencies. The main one here is Flutter. We're going to add these two for Firebase and Firestore. Firebase has a set of core ones, and then Firestore has its own ones that we add in here. Now you can specify some minimum ones that you want here, or you can just leave that out. I'll just leave those minimums there. And then we want to do a pub-get here to download those libraries. And then we're going to try to do our coding here. So with Firebase, right away in our app, we want to load in Firebase or get Firebase set up early on in our app, even before we get down to our stateful thing. So in our main app up here at the top, right now we just run our app here. We have to switch this to be asynchronous and then run our app. So our app is called My App. So we're going to switch it to do this. So instead of this up here, we're going to run main. We're going to do async, and then we're going to initialize our Flutter widgets and initialize our Firebase. We need to do an await because this is asynchronous, and then we'll run our app afterwards. So anytime you're using Firebase, you've got to do this command here. Now this requires some imports. And this is going to require an import. I think I'm missing that import. Got something wrong with this code here. I'm gonna ask Gemini what's wrong with this. All right, so this is because I'm getting into this where I haven't configured my Firebase app to work correctly for this stuff. So there's not a default Firebase option. There should be, I should see in lib another file, this Firebase options.dart file should have been created here when I did the Firebase config. And then also, if I look in like my Android file, I should see my Firebase JSON file installed there, and I'm not seeing that either because again, I didn't get a successful config there. But okay, hopefully you can go through here. We want to store bands for this stuff. So the main thing that we want to look at is in our main list here, we're going to use what is called a stream builder here, and that is we get a snapshot of our app, and this is where we get our data from Firebase. So we define our streams here. And then depending on our snapshot that we have, our builder gets a snapshot here, and we can check. We want to check so if the snap might have errors, and if it doesn't have any data in it, we'll still be loading it in. Eventually, it'll get data, here, and so we'll get the documents, and this will be the documents from Firebase. And then once we have that, we can display our list builder. If you remember our list builder, we can set item counts. So we have our document is basically like an array or our list of bands here. So we can say docs.list, and then we can get the data. And then once we have the data, we can say like get the name of the band, get the number of votes from the band here for this. So I'm going to try to work some more to get this configuration work. Feel free, if you've got the configuration to work, feel free to try to work through, get this code working on their stuff. And then my goal is that Thursday, when we do this for real as a learning activity, by Thursday, we can get this to work more smoothly. We'll see how that goes. So again, all this is practice. I wanted to see how it is for Thursday, where hopefully we can get this to work correctly. I'm going to try to log off and restart Windows and see if that helps with this situation. I'm not sure why this was working earlier in the lab and not now. So I'm going to stop this recording, and I'll have part 2.